is the next guy who comes in, whoever it is, Dan Lanning, or whoever it may be. How to me, if it is Dan Lanning, he's already proved that he can win on his own
Yeah.
at Oregon. He's already proven he's a winner. All right, so I don't see how it's anybody but Dan Lanning, in my opinion. Uh, I think the head coach at Washington,
Kalen DeBoer.
DeBoer, thank you. Uh, he might have caught lightning in a bottle. We'll see on him.
I
I,
think he's a good
I,
coach.
I, I,
I think he's 101 and 12 in his coaching career. He's a pretty good coach.
yeah,
I don't think it was lightning in a bottle, but we'll see.
but we'll see on that. So, I mean, Mike Norvell, definitely no. I've heard his name thrown out. Just no. I don't see why. Oh, to be honest with you, I don't know why Florida State hired him.
Hmm.
I mean, to be honest with you, I don't think he's. I think he's a decent head coach, but he's not going to get them where they want to be, and that's
Yeah.
what they hired him for, was to get them back to the top of college football where they were under Bobby Bowden and for a little while under Jimbo. So I just don't think he's going to be the guy to get them there. I could be wrong. I just don't think he's the guy to get them there. Dabo Sweeney just won't adapt to the changing world in college football. He's still wanting to go get high school guys and high school guys only. He don't want to go get these guys out of the transfer portal. And as you've seen the last 2-3 years of his downfall, it's a changing world in college football, and you got to have a balance of both experienced guys and young high school guys. So to me, it's Dan Lanning and nobody else,
Hmm.
in my opinion. And if the fan base, I say that to say this, if the fan base can just leave him alone and let him do what he's already proven he can do, Alabama will be just fine.
Yeah. With that being said, agreed. With reflecting on Saban's legacy, with talking and discussing his retirement, it's hard to soak in the moment because we're discussing what's next. And, the initial NCAA transfer window for underclassmen is closed. However, when a coach retires or is fired, there's about a 30-day period in which players can be contacted with other schools and transfers. Now, there's a conference rule they can't do that, but the SEC also has an exception when a head coach leaves. So Nick Saban's retirement will surely have a ripple effect in that locker room. Don't be surprised if some players exercise that right and take that opportunity to go elsewhere, explore other opportunities. I mean, Ryan Williams, the five-star wide receiver, decommitted less than 2 hours after the news came out yesterday.
Real quick, I want
Heads
to
are,
say this about that real quick before we move on. But I mean, the guy's basically been. He was never committed to
yeah,
Alabama. He are ever since he committed, we'll say committed to Alabama, he's been 1 foot out the door, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Uh, I'm gonna say this about him, and then we'll move on. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if it is, wherever it is, it's looking like it's gonna be Auburn. That's gonna get him. It's where
hmm,
it's looking like. But wherever he goes, he won't spend more than 2 years there.
yeah,
Because what I'm seeing from that guy is he is a locker room problem. He is in it for the money. Uh, like Quinshawn Judkins was at Ole Miss, and he's just moving around trying to see where he could get the most money at. Is what it's looking like, and so I don't think the guy's gonna. He definitely won't finish his college career wherever he starts it at. He most certainly won't finish it there.
well, I think it's a little early to jump on him. Who knows? With Dan Lanning possibly being the head coach, he's a locker room guy. He might actually convince Ryan Williams to come to
I don't. I,
Tuscaloosa.
I don't know if I want the guy.
Yeah,
I mean, do you want a guy who's not 100% committed to your team and your program?
Well, I will say this. I mean, he
I don't
is.
care how talented he is.
I know. I'm just going to say this. He is 17, 18 years old. There's a lot of questions. I know when it was myself deciding whether I was or where I wanted to go to college or not, it was difficult and
I'm not
complicated
saying that.
process.
I'm saying make your decision and stick with it.
Yeah.
Don't be 1 foot out the door since day one and say, "Oh, I'm going here," and then be like, "No, I'm gonna go here." Then no, I'm gonna go there. And no, I'm gonna go. It's like he's always chasing for the greener grass.
Yeah.
And grass ain't always greener, brother.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and tell you that right now.
With that being said, the next head coach is going to have to spend a lot of time retaining the new roster. Uh, heads are currently spinning in Athens and Columbus to get Alabama star freshman Caleb Downs. There's Proctor, Milrose, a name we may see jump in the portal, although, I have my doubts about Jalen Milroe. Specifically him, but and then there's Alabama's star commit Jalen Salen. Now he's already enrolled at Alabama, which means he would have to enter the transfer portal. He couldn't just decommit since he's already enrolled. He'd have to enter the transfer portal, but that is a worry that possibly Jalen Salen will go elsewhere. But with that being said, as I said, whoever the next head coach is going to be will have their hands full with just retaining Alabama's current roster, Alabama's current recruiting class that Saban's recruited, and get their commits to stay on board. Matt Stahl from AL.com, as you mentioned, several of the names, has his list of potential Alabama targets, including Dan Lanning, Steve Sarkisian, Lane Kiffin, Mike Norvell, Kalen DeBoer from Washington. Some have also included Dabo Swinney, the two-time national champion head coach at Clemson. Regarding the Crimson Tide going forward, Byrne, Alabama's athletic director, said his goal in the search for a new head coach is to be thorough but expedient. Our ideal candidate will be strong in recruiting and relationship building, player development, and excel in X's and O's, and have the overall ability to lead this historic program. There will be plenty of rumors out there during this process. Next time I'll talk publicly will be to announce our new head coach. If you don't hear it from me, don't believe it. And according to 24/7 Sports, Byrne, during the meeting in which Saban announced his retirement, informed the players that he will be naming the next head coach within 72 hours. The hands-on favorite, according to Las Vegas, is that the next head coach is Dan Lanning, followed by Dabo Swinney and Mike Norvell on those odds. Of those names, Dan Lanning is obviously an attractive choice, a very appealing candidate. Has really built, I wouldn't say he's built Oregon, but he really has elevated that program to be a contender. And I think with the expanded playoffs, they will be, I think they might be the hands-on favorite to win the Big Ten next year, believe it or not. With the possibility of Michigan's head coach Jim Harbaugh leaving, a lot of programs graduating, and a lot of them being older.
Well,
And
right
then
now,
Ohio
Ryan
State.
Day can't prove that he's the guy at Ohio State.
Well, and not only that, with the QB, they haven't even gotten a quarterback yet.
And that's a big question mark too.
So with that being said, Oregon's definitely the heads-on favorite to win the Big Ten. So definitely, and he was a former graduate assistant at Alabama. He was the former defensive coordinator of the Georgia Bulldogs team that dethroned the Alabama Crimson Tide in 2021. So he's definitely an appealing candidate. Doesn't necessarily have the track record as maybe a Steve Sarkisian has. Steve Sarkisian, current Texas head coach, was the head coach at USC, had some modest success before being fired during a tumultuous time during his personal life. He also elevated the Washington Huskies program. Washington went from a winless program to a perennial bowl contender under Steve Sarkisian. He elevated that Huskies program. Of course, he took the job after being fired from USC. Took the job to be an analyst at Alabama. Was the offensive coordinator during the 2016 national championship game. 2017 and 18, he was the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. Came back as the OC. Had a successful win, I think, 2 years as the OC at Alabama.
I think it was 2.
And then he went on to be the head coach at the University of Texas. And Took Texas, went 5-7 his first year, 8-5 his second year, and took them to the playoffs this year, and of course beat Alabama in
Mhm.
Tuscaloosa in September in week 2. Yeah, so he's definitely, in my opinion, he's probably the first person that Byrne probably called. There was reports that he was the guy that Saban ideally wanted to replace him in the event that Saban retired. There was some rumors that he had a head coaching opportunity the year before he took the Texas job. I going back and look at it, I'm thinking probably either the Ole Miss job or maybe even the Mississippi State job when he took that. When those programs were looking for a new head coach, there was rumors that Steve Sarkisian was offered a job and he about decided he was going to take it. He went to Saban and said, "Hey, I think I'm going to take this opportunity," and Saban said, "You don't want to do that. You know,
Mhm.
you're I'm planning on for you to be the next guy at the University of Alabama." But then when Texas called a year later, I think he and Saban had a discussion, and
Yeah, that.
both of them agreed that that's a job you can't turn down.
Yeah, that's definitely a job you
And
can't
I
turn
think
down
that's the one
for
thing,
sure.
and I think that's the one thing that's going to be the biggest problem with Alabama acquiring Steve Sarkisian is Texas is similar to Alabama, a big brand name, has a
Mhm.
lot of money, has a lot of resources, if not more than what is in Tuscaloosa, and he just took them to the college football playoffs.
Yeah. The only way I can see Sark coming to Alabama is because of Nick Saban,
Yeah,
because he idolizes Nick Saban. Anytime they ask or talk to him about Nick Saban, it's always how he changed his career when nobody was looking
yeah,
at him. Because of his personal issues, Nick Saban did and gave him a chance, and he has always said that he's indebted to him. So
hmm
that would be the only way. I just don't, you know, I just don't think he will end up at Alabama. I like for him too. He is more than welcome. Let's get him on a plane right now and get him to Tuscaloosa for all I care. But I just think realistically, uh, I think it's a lateral move, really, to be honest with you. I've always said when getting a new head coach, lateral or downgrading, obviously, you don't do. You always want to move up.
hmm
When you're looking for a new guy, you always want to move up. And I think the Texas job and the Alabama job, I agree with you. It's pretty level.
yeah. I agree with you there. Another name mentioned is obviously Dabo Swinney. I think Dabo Swinney 3-4 years ago probably would have had the job today. It
Oh,
would have been announced that
absolutely.
Dabo Swinney is the head
We
coach.
would have. He retired. I think it was like 4 o'clock, 4 or 5 o'clock
Yeah.
yesterday afternoon. There would have been a press conference at like 8, 9 o'clock last night hiring Dabo.
hmm
If it was 3,
Three,
or
4 years
three
ago.
or four
Yeah.
years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's built a successful program at Clemson, but I think with the current uh, way things have been trending in Clemson now, I think he's starting to adapt. He's starting to make some staff changes. He's starting to kind of shift towards acquiring transfer portal talent and starting to adapt to the NIL because if you don't, if you ain't adapting, you're going to be left behind in the dust. And
You go 8-5, I think is what it
yeah,
was, and
but
win
this
a
year,
meaningless bowl game.
yeah. So, obviously, Clemson has fallen off the last 2 years. Kind of the wheels felt like they've kind of fallen off. Things are definitely not the same in Clemson as they were a couple of years ago. I wouldn't be too terribly upset because I think Alabama is ahead of the game because of Saban and because
Mhm.
of different people and Byrne. Alabama's kind of ahead right now in the NIL deals and the
Mhm.
NIL collectives and obviously Nick Saban's had success in the transfer portal. So I think that it would be a nice move for Dabo, and I think it would work if he was to be the head coach at Alabama. But I think because of his reluctancy and rigidness, I think he kind of has moved down on the list and would probably be a guy that was maybe 3 or 4 on the list. Um, I've heard rumors of James Franklin. Again, James Franklin has been successful at Penn State, but hasn't really done anything other than win one Big Ten title
Yeah.
in his tenure at Penn State. I think that
Yeah,
I,
what's his record against Ohio State
in Michigan.
and
Yeah,
Michigan? Yeah.
yeah,
How many times has he made the playoffs?
yeah. So we'll see about that. I think he'd be again somebody that, in case in the scenario that people don't want to take the job,
Yeah, if for some reason we can't get Dan Lanning or
Kalen DeBoer.
yeah, Kalen DeBoer, or I would probably take Dabo Swinney over
Yeah.
James Franklin, to be
Yeah,
honest.
I
Even
would too.
though I'm not a big Dabo supporter.
Yeah.
Or Lane Kiffin, I know his name's been thrown out there too. But I think Lane Kiffin is kind of like a Steve Sarkisian a little bit.
Well, I'll get to that in a second.
I think Lane Kiffin would actually come to Alabama. But we'll put it this way: he has a better. We have a better chance at hiring Lane Kiffin than we do Steve Sarkisian. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. I'll just say this about Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin, another guy you mentioned, former Alabama offensive coordinator, former USC, Tennessee head coach, former Oakland Raiders head coach. He's been to a lot of places, Florida Atlantic. Was the Alabama offensive coordinator from, I believe, 2014 to 2017, 16. Kind of was credited for elevating that Alabama offense and kind of moving it and modernizing that Alabama offense into what it is today. Lane Kiffin, I would like the hire of Lane Kiffin. Some wouldn't, but I just don't think he would fit in Tuscaloosa. I don't think the boosters would be able to put up with his antics. I've been pretty vocal about this on social media the last couple hours. I like Kiffin, but I think there's a multitude of reasons why I don't think he will ultimately be the head coach in Tuscaloosa. He's already building a championship contender right now in Oxford. I don't know if you
Shoot, look at that roster he's
Yeah.
got this upcoming season against Ole Miss, and you get Georgia at home this upcoming year. So
they get Georgia and Oklahoma at home. I think that's their two toughest
yeah,
tests.
I know. So
They're not just competing for the SEC next year. They're competing for the national title, especially with this expanded playoffs. It's within reason that Ole Miss will probably find themselves in the playoffs.
yeah, fix your defensive issues you had at times
And they brought in
this
plenty
year.
of talent with
Man,
Walter Nolan and several
Yeah,
others.
I don't see how.
Yeah.
They with the expansion now of the playoffs, it's get there. It's kind of like playoffs in professional sport. Get there and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
So you just got to get there, and
Yeah.
they should be there. Should. So we'll wait and see what happens. But no, Ole Miss football is definitely going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
This upcoming year for sure.
Yeah, but I don't think he will be the head coach in Tuscaloosa for that reason and for the reason that I mentioned just a second ago. I don't think his antics would fit in with the boosters. The moment he goes for it on fourth down against Auburn or LSU or Georgia and we lose the ball game, he's handed the pink slip. He's gone.
Leaving him on the tarmac.
So I don't think and in his social media antics, the boosters, that's just not an Alabama head coach. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'll tell you this. I think that's the last segment we're going to talk about today. So before we wrap up, I will say this though. Greg Burns has got it under control.
Yeah.
For sure. Because I'll tell you this though. I know this is comparing apples and oranges, but I will still say this. What is this now? This is Nate Oates' 5th year at Alabama?
Yeah.
4th, 5th year at Alabama? Buddy, what was that basketball program like at Alabama before we hired Nate Oates?
Yeah.
It was in shambles. And then Greg Byrne. The rumor was Nick Saban had some say in it too, and I'm sure Nick Saban will have some say in who the next head coach will be for the football team. But they went out to Buffalo and hired a guy I never even heard of, by the name of Nate Oates. And I remember when we hired him, I remember talking with you because I remember I told you I wanted Pitino. I wanted Rick Pitino because I was tired of hiring these morally right guys that couldn't win a basketball game. I was sick and tired of it, and I was willing to put up with possibly getting on probation, actually winning for a change. But no, luckily they made the right hire, and we've won two SEC uh, regular season titles since then. Won two SEC tournament titles since then, and made the sweet NCAA tournament every year under Nate Oates,
Mhm.
and you've made the Sweet 16 twice. I mean, he's got that program trending
The
where they
right
want to
direction. Yeah.
have it going.
Yeah.
And so I believe in my heart 100% that whoever it is that they hire, they're going to hire the right guy. And to the man that just retired yesterday, sure as heck didn't leave the cabinet dry.
No.
So, it's. Is it? Are we gonna win? Is the next head coach gonna stay for 17 years and win? 6 national championships. More than likely not.
No, this ain't ever going to be replicated.
No. I mean, never say never, but
Yeah.
I mean, if it does, that's a miracle if it does. We'll
Yeah.
put it that way. But no, definitely, it sucks because I would rather have Nick Saban over anybody
I agree.
as the head coach at Alabama. But sadly, he's wanting to hang it up, and that's his decision. And I wish him nothing but the best. But it's it is what it is. It's on to the next one.
Yeah. You know, Kalen DeBoer is another guy that I've heard mentioned. Washington head coach. I don't know if he has any Saban connections, but he's another guy that we've kind of mentioned, and his name's been thrown around. And I've seen he's actually gotten a lot of steam in the last hour since we've been on this show. He is a guy that I think if the fans could rally around, I think Alabama would be just fine. He's been successful everywhere he's been at. Once again, he's only had 12 losses in his entire coaching career. Mm-hmm. He's built Washington. I mean, Chris Peterson did a great job at Washington, made that into a perennial Pac-12 contender. But he's elevated that program. He's taken from a Pac-12 contender to a national championship contender. They went to the national championship at Washington. And
it was a couple plays away from making that ball game a little more interesting.
Yeah.
I still think they would have lost, but it would have been a lot more interesting of a ball game.
If they had Dan Lanning's offensive line, they win that ball game. But but that's how it is at Washington. He would have a better offensive line than Tuscaloosa, obviously.
I think that's what Alabama needs right now. It's just Dan Lanning's physicality on that offensive line, his knowledge of both the defense
and the offensive
line. I think that's what Alabama, after this year for sure, desperately needs. And I think that's why he needs to be on an airplane as quickly as possible to Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, I agree with you there. But, yeah, Kalen DeBoer's a guy that's been picked up. His name's been kind of picked up with steam in the last hour. There's a little bit of an indication and feeling amongst Alabama fans that Lanning's not going to be the guy. Just with what has been said within the program at Oregon, several players from inside the organizations. I think a recruit came out. Now he's a recruit. It's not even confirmed he's on campus. Has said that Dan Lanning has told his players that he's not leaving. And then
okay. I mean,
I know. But hang on, catch with me. Josh Pate tweeted, "Hey, I'm Josh. Josh Pate of CBS Sports does a great job with his podcast." Josh Pate posted, "I'm Josh Pate of CBS Sports, and I can confirm Dan Lanning has not flown or has not been seen in Tuscaloosa." And Dan Lanning, his Twitter account, liked that tweet. So I don't know. I don't know if that tells you anything, because obviously there's been cases where coaches said they weren't leaving and they left. But
I'm pretty sure Nick Saban said he wasn't going to leave them.
And I agree, but I'm just saying online right now, Kalen DeBoer is kind of emerging.
Pretty sure he also said he wasn't going to leave LSU either.
But his name is kind of emerging right now as he's kind of getting leveled up there with him and Dan Lanning. So Dan Lanning, Kalen DeBoer. And by the way, I will say this as an Alabama fan. I'll take away my analyst glasses for a minute and just kind of put my imaginary Alabama hat on. I'm wearing an Alabama jacket. I would like to hire Kalen DeBoer. I'd like it about just as much as Dan Lanning. Outside of I don't know how the defense would look under Kalen DeBoer, but I mean, he's like I said, he's won everywhere he's been at. He's very creative offensive mind. Uh, we definitely would. I think the days of seeing mediocre receivers would be over if we get him. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting couple hours in Tuscaloosa. It ain't looking like we're going to get the news as we're alive. I figure if we get the news, it's probably going to be tomorrow. At least that's the way it's trending and looking like.
I figure either tomorrow or Saturday is really.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm scrolling through Twitter real quick. Gonna also go here and look at some of y'all's questions or comments. We appreciate each and every one of y'all for tuning in live, and whether you tune in live or watching replay, we thank each and every one of y'all for y'all's support. Colton Corum commented, as an Auburn fan, Saban is the greatest of all time. I think we completely agree with you there. Wesley Cook thinks that Dan Lanning's buyout is too big. I will say this. I will say this. I don't think the buyout's a problem. I don't think money's an issue here.
No, especially not for us. Especially.
Yeah, I mean, Alabama's got plenty of wealthy boosters that'll cover it. Not only with that, Alabama hasn't had to pay a buyout in almost nearly 20 years. So it ain't, Alabama hasn't really lost money in regards of having to buy somebody out outside of the basketball program, and basketball coaches don't make nearly half the money as as college football coaches do. So I don't think money's an issue here. I think if Dan Lanning wants to go to Tuscaloosa,
especially how much they're charging for tickets now, and them hot dogs and parking and all that stuff. Yeah, we could pay any buyout. Yeah. I mean, that ain't a problem.
Yeah, I don't think $20 million is gonna be the reason why Dan Lanning doesn't go to Tuscaloosa. I think Dan Lanning is a young guy. He's got a family that from a lot of sources surrounding Dan Lanning and his family, the family in particular, enjoys and loves Eugene, Oregon. So family's obviously a powerful thing. Sometimes you got to make professional sacrifices, not moving in the interest of your family. So won't be shocked if he decides to stay at Oregon. And Oregon's got a good program. They got Nike behind it. They got a lot of resources. The only problem with Oregon is that it's geographically it's a difficult place to get the top end talent, to get the best of the best recruits. Now Dan Lanning's done a good job, especially at the line of scrimmage, of consistently recruiting. Both on the offensive, defensive line of scrimmage, and you've kind of seen it. Oregon is basically a Southeastern Conference team in a Pacific time zone. I mean, they're built like an SEC team. They got SEC transfers, SEC recruits. They got people. They got a lot of players on that roster that come from the South. They are literally a SEC team just playing in a Pacific time zone. So it's going to be interesting, and I don't blame him if he don't leave. He's got Oregon trending in the right direction. They got Dylan Gabriel committed, so they'll miss Bo Nix, but Dylan Gabriel is also obviously a very capable quarterback. Like I said, I think they'll be the odds-on favorite to win the Big Ten next year. So I don't blame them for leaving. Kalen DeBoer obviously probably be second on my list. With that being said, probably Steve Sarkisian, Lane Kiffin, and then Dabo Swinney, and the likes of Dabo Swinney, James Franklin, and all that go
Mike
down.
Norvell.
People
like that.
Mike Norvell, the only benefit of getting Mike Norvell is his buyout. And if Byrne has any interest in the money aspect, which I'm shocked at how low this is, but Mike Norvell's buyout is only $4 million. So,
well, I mean, look what he's done it for.
He's done a pretty good job. He's got that program trending in the right direction. I know the way it kind of came out in the Orange Bowl with several players transferring stuff. I think Florida State will be fine. I mean, he took over a dumpster fire, and year after year after year, you have seen the gradual increase. Jimbo Fisher is Jimbo Fisher to me. I hate to comment on people's personalities, but I don't like him as a person.
Mm.
I think he left Florida State out to dry running that
He
program,
really screwed them over,
and
and he really screwed over
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M too.
And we'll
Yep.
see how big or how quick of a rebuild Mike Elko will be able to produce there. Um, but I think Mike Norvell's is a good head coach. But do I think he's going to be somebody that energizes the fan base and the boosters? I don't necessarily think that. But with that being said, I think whoever is the next head coach, I won't be shocked if we see Saban at the press conference and kind of giving like passing the torch or kind of an anointing of the
Mm-hmm.
crown to the next guy. And with that being said, if it has Saban's endorsement, it has my endorsement.
Exactly.
Exactly. So with that being said, a phenomenal coaching career Nick Saban has had. We've talked about his retirement. We've reflected on his legacy. We've looked at who potentially might be the next head coach of the University of Alabama. As of now, we don't know. No official reports are coming out of Tuscaloosa. And with that being said, we decided to have an emergency episode just because, this is a big topic in the sport of college football, a sport that me and you in particular like to cover and watch,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously in the state of Alabama. So we thank each and every one of y'all for joining, whether you're joining in live, tuning in, or you're joining on a replay. Starting today, we will start to be posting segments on our YouTube channel. We'll post links to those to those segments on our YouTube channel. We'll also try to post more on Instagram and hopefully post more on Twitter. But with that being said, we thank y'all for tuning in. Austin Baldwin, you got any comments or any closing thoughts?
No, just as always, roll tide.
Yeah, roll tide. Well, for Austin Balding, I'm Noah Brady. Thank you for tuning in to Between the Lines. This is the emergency podcast episode. We thank y'all for tuning in, and God bless y'all and be safe.